I'm Jenna. This is Ava, or Ava June if you go by her middle name too. And we are starting a video blog. We had been talking about this for a while, but I think it's really important to share our stories and our experiences because I think, one, it's good for memories. Two, I think it is good for the community so that if anyone else is going through this, they have the knowledge from somebody else's experience. And then for me, it's also kind of personal. So Ava was born with something called Pierre Robin Sequence. And what that does is that means that the first year of life, hi baby, can be a little tough. And if Ava ever chooses to have kids in the future, I want her to kind of know what it was like for us as her parents, and so it's not so scary for her. I also want to say that Ava's case of Pierre Robin is actually on the milder side, and so that there's a spectrum, because what Pierre Robin Sequence is it is a recessed chin and tongue, and then a cleft palate. And what that means at birth is that it could have feeding difficulties or breathing difficulties, and it runs the gamut. On the more extreme side, some of the babies need tracheotomies right away. Some do need breathing or feeding tubes in order to get their food. And then there's other things that are in the middle and the more medium stuff, and then there's the super mild where the baby could just use a specialty bottle for the cleft palate and then be otherwise okay. Ava is somewhere in the middle between mild and medium. So when Ava was born, she was 5 pounds, 12 ounces. She's just a little peanut. And we knew that there was a possibility that Ava could have this because her dad had it. And so we found out around 20 weeks that Ava had a recessed chin, and they couldn't see any of the palate issues on the ultrasound. So it was a lot of kind of waiting and seeing, which, you know, I don't know about you, but I was kind of a worrier, and that was kind of hard. So what we did is we prepared for the worst and hope for the best. I might do another video later just to kind of talk more in depth about how the pregnancy was like with that diagnosis. For now, I just kind of wanted to do a basics on what Pierre Robin Sequence is. So we saw the chin and that it was small on the ultrasounds. And what I knew is that when my husband, Dan, was born, he had swallowed his tongue and so came out blue and not breathing. And so I knew that there could be some breathing difficulties, and I knew that there could be some feeding issues. Excuse the teething baby. For Ava, she came out crying, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I just kept saying, she's okay, she's okay. They had the neonatologist there so that they could check her, and they've obviously found the cleft palate, which Ava has, and when you have a recessed chin and tongue, that means that the tongue can often fall back and block the airway. And so when Ava was first born, she had to be in only certain positions. So she had to be on her side or facing down so that the gravity could pull that, pull the tongue forward so it wouldn't block her airway. Now, I was a first-time parent, and so it was just kind of, special instructions, I guess, is how I took it. While most babies are supposed to only sleep on their back, my baby needed to sleep on her side. We rolled up some towels on either side and, you know, kind of helped her be propped up. She made different noises when she was breathing. Sometimes it was a clicking noise. Sometimes you could actually hear the airway obstruct. And so what you had to do is you had to quickly move her face down so that the tongue would move out of the airway and she could breathe again. I have a video from a cell phone that I can share and put in here so you can kind of see an example of what that was like for her. It's a little hard to watch. I assure you that she was okay moments later as soon as we repositioned her. But this was kind of an ongoing thing for us the first 6 weeks as we were dealing with Ava's PRS and her difficulty breathing. Because a lot of the friends that came to visit and family members that came to visit were pretty alarmed because obviously healthy babies don't need that. They don't need to be constantly moved and monitored for breathing. But at the time, it didn't feel scary because I was used to what noises she was making. What started to become an issue is that because she was working so hard to breathe, as you'll see in the video clip, she just wasn't putting on weight. It was like she was running a marathon all of the time. And, you know, she was already small to begin with. She was 5 pounds, 12 ounces. And then they lose that first little chunk of weight right away when they're born. So she got down to 5 pounds, 5 ounces. So here she was, this little like peanut of a thing, just struggling to breathe, struggling to put weight on. But the idea of putting my baby through a surgery was also very, very, very scary. We got to a point where they were monitoring her weight all of the time. So we had doctor's appointments, maybe like it got to a point where it was one a day because there's so many different specialists. And all the specialists wanted her to be weighed on their scale. So we had a GI that we were seeing, plastic surgeon that we were seeing. We had the pediatrician in there. We had geneticists. We had a speech and feeding therapist, the gamut. We also had a physical therapist in there, like everything. So it got to a point where it was obvious that she needed assistance. The doctor was nice and let us basically choose if we wanted to wait because we were really good at listening to her and monitoring her. And, you know, as soon as she was obstructed, we would move her. She was eating still really good. That is the thing for Ava specifically, is that there's a Dr. Brown specialty bottle, which I can show you in a different blog, hopefully, where there's a one-way valve. And because kids with cleft palates can't create suction, but they can do the chomping movement, this one-way valve was a lifesaver. And so even the first day that she was born, Ava was a good eater, but she was burning so many calories trying to breathe. So at 6 weeks, like I said, they gave us the choice, like, do you want to wait and see, since the chin does grow in over the first year, or do we want to go ahead and have the surgery? Now, for PRS babies, there are two main options for surgery. There is what's called a jaw distraction or a mandible extraction, where hardware is put into the chin and then they turn it over. Excuse me, you gotta get this, Sophie. Okay. So they turn it over a little bit of time and force the chin to grow forward. The other option is what's called a tongue lip adhesion, where the tongue is sewn to the inside of the lower lip here. Oh, that's squeaky. That is a little bit less invasive. However, me and my husband were in agreement that if she needed the jaw distraction, we would have done that. No questions asked, because, you know, her well-being is better, or is worth it. But because they thought that the tongue lip adhesion would solve the problem, I'll share in a different blog a little bit more about the hospital stay, because it could be a story in and of itself. Anyway, after that surgery, once the tongue was pulled forward, here you go, it was like night and day. She could lay on her back, which is the most miraculous thing I have ever seen. And I know, like, obviously most babies can lay on their back, but when my baby laid on her back, it was incredible. It was like she relaxed all over, we relaxed all over, and we knew at that point that it had been the right decision. It was amazing, and has done a lifetime of good for Ava. Like, she's been able to put on weight now. Obviously she looks a lot bigger than 5 pounds right now. She's closer to 13 now. Oh no, she is over 13 now, and she's almost 7 months old, so like it's been a really good thing. So that for Ava has been, up until this point, all the main fix is that we had the tongue lip adhesion. It's helped her breathing problem, and because the Dr. Brown's bottle helped her feeding issues, that kind of at this point right now makes her just like any other normal baby. However, we do have several surgeries coming up for her. We have the removal of the tongue lip adhesion, because obviously for speech purposes, you can't have your tongue attached to your lip. You have to have it out so you can touch the roof of your mouth, you can stick it out, you can do all these things. So that is coming up in March for us. And then when Ava is a year old, so it's going to be end of May, early June, is when we do the cleft palate repair. So my goal is, oops, she keeps throwing her selfie. My goal is to, now that we have this in place, do a few more blogs that have more of the story as far as like what it's like during pregnancy to find out that your baby needs help or might have some special needs after. Especially in my case, so it's specifically for a PRS baby. I want to do another blog to show you the bottle, and then I want to do one to kind of talk you through what the tongue lip adhesion surgery was like. But then my goal is to kind of share with you the journey as we continue. So the surgery's in March, and then May or early June, whenever that ends up being. Hopefully this helps somebody else who's about to go through it, or makes someone who is going through it feel a little less alone. And then also hopefully it is something that Ava will then be able to have access to. So thanks for listening, and we will be back later. All right, bye.